What if I told you that the constant worry about your future isn't just stressful, but it's also unnecessary? Imagine waking up tomorrow with a heart free from anxiety, knowing that everything is already in God's hands. That's right. No more sleepless nights stressing about what might go wrong. No more endless what-if scenarios playing out in your mind. The truth is, many of us are trapped by the false belief that worrying will somehow protect us from bad outcome. But here's the catch. Worrying only steals our peace and prevents us from fully living the life God has given us. Jesus himself in Matthew 6:34 invites us to break free from this cycle with a simple yet profound message. Do not worry about tomorrow. What if we stopped trying to control every detail of our lives? What if we trusted God fully with our future, knowing that His plan is greater than anything we could imagine? In this video, we'll explore how you can stop worrying, live fully in the present, and rest in the assurance that your tomorrow is in God's hand. Worrying about what tomorrow holds can easily overshadow the beauty of today. It's as if we're constantly carrying an invisible weight, dragging us down when we should be soaking up the sunshine. Yet life is meant to be enjoyed, one moment at a time. It's crucial to shift our focus, to live with more intention and less anxiety. Too often, our minds race ahead to imagined scenarios that might never come to pass. But what if we chose to live differently? Instead of letting our fears dictate our days, what if we trusted more in God's plan for our lives? Imagine the freedom that comes from releasing those constant worries, allowing ourselves to simply be present. When we focus on the now, it becomes easier to appreciate the small joys that fill each day. Whether it's a gentle breeze rustling the leaves or a kind word from a friend, these little moments hold so much potential. Each one is a reminder that life is full of blessings if we open our eyes to see them. It's natural to want to prepare for the future, but it's also important not to let that preparation turn into an obsession. True wisdom lies in finding the balance, in planning thoughtfully while still letting go enough to enjoy the gift of today. For instance, rather than spending all day worrying about work, try setting clear goals for the next week and then giving yourself permission to enjoy the evening. Consider the lilies of the field, as Jesus once said. They don't toil or spin, yet they are clothed in beauty. We can learn a lot from nature, which seems to understand the value of living one day at a time. It's not about being passive, but about trusting that God will provide what's needed for today. By doing this, we can find more peace and more joy in our daily lives. Imagine if we could approach each day with the same sense of curiosity and excitement as a child, to see the world with fresh eyes, eager to discover what lies ahead, rather than burdened by past mistakes or future fears. It's not easy, but it's worth striving for. In those moments, when we let go of worry, it's as if we suddenly see everything more clearly. Life doesn't have to be a constant battle between what we want and what we fear. God invites us to live freely, trusting in His guidance. It's an invitation worth taking, especially when we consider how much more fulfilling our lives could be if we focused on the present. It's not about ignoring the future entirely, but about living with a lighter, more open heart. Experience has a way of teaching us to be vigilant, always preparing for what lies ahead. This vigilance can be helpful when planning for important events or ensuring our safety. But sometimes, that instinct to anticipate the future can steal our attention away from the present. We become so focused on what's coming next that we forget to embrace the beauty of the here and now. It's almost like walking through life with one foot in the future, and in doing so, we miss the simple joys all around us. Think about how often we make to-do lists, worrying about tasks and deadlines. While it's good to plan, it's just as important to stop and notice the things that make life beautiful, those moments of peace, of connection, of quiet gratitude. Jesus taught us that it's okay to not have all the answers. In Matthew 6:34, He encourages us not to worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will take care of itself. The moment we let go of the need to control every detail, we open ourselves up to experience the present with greater clarity. Trusting in God's provision for today allows us to live fully in each moment. The desire to anticipate what's next often comes from a place of wanting to avoid pain or disappointment. But the truth is, no amount of worry can change the outcome of a situation. In fact, it often makes it worse. Think of a time when you worried about something that never even happened. In those moments, anxiety has robbed us of the peace we could have enjoyed. Living in the moment requires a shift in mindset, a choice to let go of the need to have everything figured out. It's about acknowledging that while planning is important, it shouldn't dominate our lives. God's call is to focus on the now, trusting that He has already mapped out the path ahead for us, and that He will provide the wisdom we need when the time comes. Sometimes, the most powerful lessons come from simply letting go and trusting. It's not about abandoning responsibility, but rather about recognizing that we cannot control every outcome. By trusting God with our future, we free ourselves from the burden of anxiety, allowing us to be fully present with those we love and to appreciate the beauty of each new day. Think of the times when you've found yourself so caught up in preparing for the next chapter of life that you missed the story being written in the moment. Every day is an opportunity to experience God's blessings in a new way. If we're constantly looking ahead, we may miss the gifts He has placed right before us. Trusting in God means letting go of that need for control and allowing Him to guide us step by step. When we read the words of Jesus in Matthew 6:34, it's as if He's speaking directly to our hearts. Do not worry about tomorrow. This piece of advice isn't just a suggestion, it's an invitation to experience life in a deeper, more meaningful way. Imagine living without the constant burden of anxiety about what might happen. It's a radical, but life-changing idea. We often think that worrying will help us prepare for the future, but Jesus reminds us that worry does not add a single hour to our lives. In fact, it often takes away from the quality of the life we're living now. Instead of stressing about what's coming, we're called to trust that God is already at work in our lives, orchestrating things according to His divine plan. This doesn't mean that we don't make plans or take action. It means that we don't carry the weight of future concerns on our shoulders every moment of the day. There's a difference between taking thoughtful steps and being consumed by what-ifs and maybes. Jesus encourages us to be present, trusting that God will give us the wisdom we need for each day. Consider the story of the Israelites in the desert, where God provided manna for them daily. They weren't given tomorrow's supply of food, just enough for today. This is a perfect example of how God wants us to rely on Him one day at a time. He's there for us every step of the way, providing what we need in the present without us having to worry about the future. Worry often comes from a place of fear that we won't be able to handle what's ahead. But Jesus tells us to let go of that fear. When we place our trust in God, we free ourselves from the grip of anxiety. And when we stop worrying, we make room for peace. Trusting in God means facing each day with courage, knowing that He will guide us through whatever challenges we may face. There's a saying, one day at a time. When we take this mindset and apply it to our relationship with God, we realize how much lighter life becomes. Every day is an opportunity to draw closer to Him, to pray, and to experience His love and provision. Trusting God with tomorrow allows us to live fully today, embracing the gifts He's given us right now. If we stop to think about it, so much of our anxiety comes from a lack of trust in God's plan. We worry that we're not prepared, that things won't go as we want them to. But when we learn to trust God's perfect timing and His infinite wisdom, we begin to release those worries. It's a daily choice, one that leads to greater peace, knowing that our tomorrow is in God's hand. Anxiety often begins with a desire for control. We look ahead and try to predict every outcome, thinking that by doing so, we can somehow avoid unpleasant surprises. But the truth is, no matter how hard we try, we can't control everything. This attempt to control the uncontrollable is what feeds our anxiety and keeps us from living in peace. Imagine you're holding a tight grip on a rope, thinking that if you pull hard enough, you can steer your life in the direction you want. But in reality, the rope is slipping through your fingers, and the harder you pull, the more you feel the strain. That's what happens when we try to control things outside of our reach. We're left exhausted, with nothing to show for it but stress and frustration. This need for control often stems from a fear of the unknown. We're afraid of what might happen, so we try to prepare for every possible scenario. But this kind of thinking only increases the weight we carry, making it harder to enjoy the present. Jesus, however, calls us to trust Him with our future, offering us peace in the process. When we let go of the need to control everything, we open ourselves up to the freedom that comes from trusting God. Think about it. When we acknowledge that we can't do it all ourselves, we create space for God to step in. It's like letting go of a heavy burden and allowing God's grace to lift us up, providing what we need when we need it. Trying to control every detail of our lives might feel like the responsible thing to do, but in reality, it often leads to unnecessary stress. When we focus too much on what's ahead, we miss out on the beauty and blessings of today. God has already given us everything we need for this moment. Why not focus on that, rather than stressing about what might come tomorrow? It's important to remember that stress doesn't come from what's happening, but from how we respond to it. When we surrender our desire for control and choose to trust in God's plan, we allow ourselves to experience more peace. Living fully in the present moment becomes easier when we stop trying to control the uncontrollable. In our daily lives, we can practice this trust by letting go of the small things we often try to manage. For example, instead of worrying about a conversation that might go wrong, focus on being present in the moment, listening with compassion, and trusting that God will guide the words. When we surrender our fears and anxieties, we make space for God's peace to fill our hearts. Every morning brings with it a fresh start, a new opportunity to face life with courage, hope, and faith. Each day is a precious gift from God, filled with its own unique challenges and opportunities. If we learn to view each day in this way, we'll begin to live more fully, appreciating the moments we have rather than worrying about what's to come. We all know that life has its ups and downs. Some days are smoother than others, but each day brings a lesson. Even in the struggles, we are presented with opportunities to grow in our faith and trust in God. Challenges are not roadblocks. They are part of the journey that shape us into the people God intends us to be. Trusting God with each day means letting go of our need to control everything. It means waking up with the faith that no matter what happens, God is with us. His strength will carry us through, and His love will surround us. There's no need to fear the unknown when we know that the Creator of the universe is guiding our steps. Consider how a child faces a new day. Without worry or fear, they greet the day with excitement, ready to see what's next. It's the kind of joy and faith we're called to embrace. Instead of carrying the burden of tomorrow's concerns, we can trust that God has equipped us with everything we need for today. Living each day with courage means facing the challenges head-on, knowing that God will provide the strength and wisdom we need. It's easy to get overwhelmed by the demands of life, but when we trust in God's provision, we can face even the toughest situations with confidence. After all, we are never alone on this journey. God's call to trust Him isn't just about believing in Him during the good times. It's about trusting Him in the moments of doubt, in the quiet moments when we're unsure of what comes next. Each day is an invitation to deepen our faith, to rely on God's guidance, and to experience His presence more fully. When we trust God with each day, we begin to see life from a new perspective. We stop seeing each day as something to survive and start seeing it as a gift to be embraced. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to grow stronger in faith, and every moment becomes a chance to experience God's goodness. Each new day is a reminder of God's endless mercy. As the sun rises, we are given a fresh start, a chance to begin again. His mercy renews every morning, and with it comes the strength to face whatever lies ahead. This is the beauty of God's grace. It's not based on our perfection, but on His unchanging love and faithfulness. We may not always feel strong enough to face the challenges that come with each day, but through God's grace, we are equipped with everything we need to navigate life's difficulties. His grace empowers us to rise above our circumstances, to trust that He is with us in every moment, and to carry on even when the road seems tough. Trusting in God's grace means understanding that we don't have to carry our burdens alone. His mercy is new every morning, ready to fill us with peace and strength. It's a constant reminder that we are never alone, that we are always supported by God's love, no matter what challenges we face. Just as a child wakes up each day with the trust that they will be cared for, we too are called to approach each day with the confidence that God will provide for our needs. Whether it's the wisdom to make a tough decision or the strength to keep going when we're exhausted, God's grace will always meet us where we are. God doesn't promise us that every day will be easy, but He does promise that He will never leave us. His mercy allows us to face each day with courage, knowing that even in our weakness, His strength is made perfect. We are invited to rely on His grace, knowing that He is faithful to provide for all our needs, both big and small. This daily renewal is a beautiful gift. Instead of being weighed down by the failures and struggles of yesterday, we can start fresh every morning, trusting that God has something new for us today. His mercy is there to cleanse us from our past, and His grace is there to carry us into the future. With each sunrise, God invites us to trust Him more deeply. His grace is the fuel that keeps us moving forward, even when we feel drained. By trusting in His daily provision, we embrace the fullness of life that He has planned for us, facing each day with hope and strength, knowing that we are held in His hand. Nature offers us a beautiful example of how to live one day at a time. Every tree, flower, and animal operates in the present moment, fully trusting that their needs will be met. Birds don't worry about tomorrow's food, and flowers don't fret about tomorrow's rain. They simply trust that God will provide for them, and they live in the moment with a peace we can learn to embrace. Imagine a bird flying across the sky. It doesn't worry about where the next meal will come from. It trusts that when it's hungry, it will find food. We're called to live in this same way, trusting that God, our Heavenly Father, will provide for us each day. There's no need to live in constant fear of what's coming because God's provision is always right on time. By observing nature, we can see how everything is taken care of in God's perfect timing. Trees grow, seasons change, and the earth provides what is needed for life, all without any effort or worry. Nature doesn't scramble or overthink. It simply exists and trusts. In the same way, we are invited to trust that God will meet our needs, one day at a time. Think of a field of flowers in bloom. They don't plan ahead for their next season. They simply open to the sunlight and the rain, trusting that everything they need will come in due time. We too are called to trust God's timing and live in harmony with His rhythm, allowing Him to care for us without fear or anxiety about the future. Each day is a new opportunity to trust God, just as the birds and flowers do. If we focus on today, we can take comfort in knowing that God is already working in our lives, guiding us to exactly where we need to be. The future is in His hands, and when we trust Him daily, we experience the peace that comes with knowing He will provide. In the hustle of life, it's easy to get caught up in the pressure of what's ahead. But when we look at nature, we see that there's no rush. Things unfold as they should, and we're invited to follow this example. When we trust God's provision for today, we are free to experience each moment fully, without worrying about what tomorrow may bring. So, just as nature trusts God to provide for every need, we are called to do the same. We don't have to fret about the unknown or try to control every detail of our lives. Instead, we can live one day at a time, trusting that God is at work in our lives, providing for us, and leading us every step of the way. So, what's holding you back from living in the peace God has already provided for you? Are you ready to stop worrying about tomorrow and trust that God has a beautiful plan for your future? The first step is simple. Take a deep breath, release your worries, and trust that God will provide for your every need just as He promises. Consider this. What would your life look like if you didn't let anxiety control you? Imagine the freedom of living fully in the present, knowing that your tomorrow is safe in God's hands. Now, it's time to take action. Start small. Choose to trust God in one area of your life today, and watch how He works. If you're ready to stop worrying and start living in God's peace, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you never miss out on more powerful insights that will help transform your life. Don't wait until tomorrow. The time to trust God is today.